Hello, all you listeners out there. Welcome to our Deep Space Nine review. We will come up with a title, I promise. We just don't have it yet. Today we're reviewing Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 3, which is called... What is it called?
Past Prologue.
Yep. And I didn't come up with an alternate title, so whatever. Alternate title...
Enter Garrick.
Oh yeah, perfect. Alternate title, Enter Garrick. See, I said it, so now you don't get credit for it. And I'm going to edit the episode. Yep. Okay, so starting with a recap of this episode. So Dr. Bashir is in the Replimat, which was always a weird word to me, because I guess it's just an area with tables where there's replicators nearby.
Yeah.
And so he's drinking a tea or whatever. Or what's he drinking?
I think it is a tea. He asks him if he wants some tea. Tarkalian tea is what he says.
And he is approached by a very flamboyant character named Garrick. I guess Garrick wants to make friends.
Yep.
And Dr. Bashir is suspicious because he heard he's a spy. I definitely have more to say about that scene later.
Yeah.
But we go in, we get our opening credits, or do we just cut to the?
We go ops. Up to ops, and he's like, "Hey, Garrick was talking to me," and
so
everyone's like, "Okay,
he's
big
really,
deal."
He's really excited about it.
Yeah,
and everybody's kind of like looking at him funny. He's really excited and confused, and then at some point they detect a Cardassian cruiser chasing a Bajoran ship through Bajoran space, which is a no-no. Kira's really outraged. Right as the ship is about to explode, they beam a guy on board. He's a Bajoran. And his name is... Was it Tanalos?
Yeah, that sounds right.
His name is Bajoran Guy. We come to find out that the Cardassians are chasing him because he's accused of terrorism. I guess in Cardassian space. And he's a member.
Yeah, it's never entirely clear on exactly what he did, but
they're not. Well, we do know that he stole a antimatter converter.
Oh yeah, that's true. That was the most recent thing. That's right. You're right.
Yeah. So I guess that's the crime that he's being accused of, even though the Cardassians never say that. Which I think would have helped their case a lot if they were like, that guy stole an antimatter converter, which is a bomb component.
Yeah, right?
But they don't say that.
Even just hey, he stole an antimatter converter. If you're going to keep him, we want that back. And then they could be like, oh, okay. Well, hey, give it up, dude, or we're going to give you back to them.
Yeah. But instead they're just like, we want that guy. And Sisko's like, no. But they take him down to sickbay. He claims that he wants to give up his ways of terrorism. Eventually we find out that maybe that's not true. I think it said he knew Kira in the past.
Yep.
In some capacity. She knows
he recognizes her. Yeah, they recognize each other when he beams on, and it's a whole thing.
It's not clear how well they knew each other. It seems pretty well. But she knows him to be a member of the... whatever it's called.
The Khon Ma.
The Khon Ma. An extremist anti-Cardassian group.
It's an extremist, I guess, given what they are doing in this episode. I guess it's more of an extremist, Bajor for Bajorans group. And the Cardassians were the only ones who cared until now.
Right, well, he said part of their whole deal after the occupation is they want to punish the Cardassians.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, they're very pro-Bajoran, anti-Cardassian. He kind of feels Kira out. This is very much like the Kira split loyalties episode, where it's kind of like the moment.
Yeah, it forces her to pick a lane, basically. And,
exactly.
They went for it real early, so I'll give them that.
Yeah. I did see some comment somewhere that this episode was aired out of order.
Yeah, they swapped this one and the next one, I think, is what I saw.
Maybe they wanted a stronger episode up front or something like that. And then also we get the Dura sisters back.
Yep.
They are up to something. And then we get Garrick kind of inserting himself into the middle of this whole confused mess. So we
to be fair, the Dora sisters kind of insert him in there themselves, but yeah, he's not ignoring the situation for sure.
Sure. I mean, Garrick must be aware that something is going on. So he gradually develops Bashir as a contact, while making contact with the Dura sisters, who we learn are there to sell a cylinder of something
like Vitruvium.
You mix it with the thingy he stole. It makes a bomb.
Yep.
And so they're going to sell that to him, and then sell him to the Cardassians in an epic, honorable Klingon double cross. And Garrick invites Dr. Bashir to come try on a suit while they have this negotiation. And then they arrange this whole plan to let the deal go through. And then their plan is to... This is where I kind of get a little... Maybe their thoughts were not so smart, because they're like, well, once the Dura sisters and the guy have made the deal, shouldn't we just go arrest them right then? And they're like, well, no, because we need to know what his plan is, because if he doesn't succeed, someone else will do it.
Yep.
Which I feel is pretty poor logic, because the way they did it, the sisters got away, and they would have made really valuable prisoners. Like, I'd say they would be even more valuable than those Bajoran terrorist guys.
I'm not certain that what the sisters did was illegal. Like, O'Brien's point is like, well, once he has those two things, he has all the components for a bomb, and that's enough for us to arrest him. So, I don't know that you can arrest them for their part of it. I'm not really sure even whose laws we're supposed to be under here, because they're talking about, Federation policy won't allow this, but at that point, like, the deal is going down just around a moon in Bajor system. So isn't that kind of like, what does Bajoran law say? Is it illegal to have bomb parts? I don't know.
That's true. They weren't clear on that. I mean, so I guess, okay, maybe for purposes of Bajoran law, they had to prove that he intended to commit a terrorist act or something like that. I don't know. Okay, so we'll let it fly. But Kira, who's gone undercover, goes with him. Turns out his plan is the incredibly smart plan of blowing up the wormhole. Kira is able to pull the old rock the runabout trick on him and delay him just enough to where the bomb doesn't blow up. And then he gets arrested. Everybody lives happily ever after.
Yep.
Okay. So, first thing I guess we should talk about is this opening scene between Garrick and Bashir. Because I don't know if you've seen this. There's a great video somewhere on YouTube about the long standing fan romance between Garrick and Bashir.
No, I don't think I've seen that.
But so it's a whole thing. Apparently for this scene, the guy who plays Garrick, Andrew Robinson, couldn't think of a reason why he would just randomly walk up to Bashir. And so he decided to play Garrick as gay. Just to give him some kind of plausible motivation to, like, strike up this conversation. And so I think that definitely shows through in a lot of his, like, you seem like an interesting young man and all this stuff. And then I don't even know how Bashir is trying to play it. He's just, like, excited and interested, and so This starts off a whole thing. I never knew it was going on back then, but like in some communities, this was like a really big thing. This is all just my memory of one YouTube video I watched a long time ago. Anyway, yeah, my main point is that I feel like Garrick is way over the top, and it's awesome. Because I feel like he wouldn't be as fun and interesting a character if he just wasn't doing all this, like, crazy, flamboyant stuff.
Yeah. No, it's weird because it sounds, when I try to explain why I love Garrick, it sounds bad. But so, because he's a great character, and right here from the, like, I feel like the way he plays him here in this introduction, in this first episode, he keeps going. Like, he doesn't, the way he plays him does not change all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Bashir, who changes a lot over the course of the show. But, so it's, Garrick's lines all sound to me like they have been rehearsed, and this is a guy just, like, way overacting these things that he's rehearsed, which that sounds bad. Like, I'm calling him a bad actor or something, but it's not. It works.
It's like he's chosen his words really carefully.
Yeah, it totally works for Garrick, for his character. It's almost like in a way, everything he says sounds like acting, like he's intentionally trying to make you think he's lying with everything that he says, so that you can never tell when he actually is lying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just I love it.
Yeah, he's got this kind of like, not like almost like aloof thing going on, where it also feels like he's just kind of like winking at you a lot.
Yep.
Where it's like, you know, and there's the one scene in the show where he's like, you know, Bashir is being an idiot as usual, and Garrick has to kind of like drop the act and be like, okay, we need to like talk seriously for a second. Like, you know, you need to like pay attention to what's going on here.
He's like, Garrick's trying to elaborately drop these hints, and Bashir's too thick to get it. And he's like, geez, okay.
And there's one part, I forget where it is, but it's like Bashir walks off, and then like Garrick is like facing away from camera, but he like turns back towards camera, and the camera kind of pushes towards him. And there's this look on his face like, did I choose the right guy for this?
Oh, yeah, I guess the idea, I mean, yeah, I guess the idea is he doesn't know Bashir. Nobody knows Bashir because everyone just got here.
Mm-hmm.
But in show logic, I guess it's like Bashir is the guy who's like innocent enough that Garrick can mess around with him.
Sure.
But is kind of like gung-ho enough that he doesn't recognize that he's not good enough to like be involved in this. So
yeah,
it's really a good combination.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, I have written down, like, how is Bashir this dumb? Because, like, it's like, Garrick's like, you should come to my shop at, like, 2055. And Bashir's like, why would I do that? I don't want a suit. And Garrick's like, yeah, but come to my shop at 2055. And Bashir's like, why? And it's just like,
glory hole. But okay, that brings up a point that I wanted to make here, which is something that they never really address, but it's just the sheer ridiculousness that tailor is a profession that you can have in a world where,
sure,
like, you can walk up to the replicator and be like, hey, computer, scan my measurements and make me a suit that fits me, that's this color or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you want it slightly changed, you can put it back and be like, okay, computer, same thing, but make the fabric, you know, Andorian alpaca instead, and extend the cuffs by 2 millimeters.
Yeah.
And it'll do that instantly. So,
well, I mean, I guess there's something to be said for, like, you know, there's always that kind of, like, human artistic eye that can tell what looks good that maybe, you know, a computer wouldn't have.
Okay, yeah, if you're going to rely on them for some decision making about, you don't know what looks good on yourself, you want somebody else to tell you, okay, maybe.
Like what kind of like cut, you know, suits your figure or something like that, you know, that, you know, someone who's been making suits his whole life would be, you know, good at figuring out. I don't know. I can argue. I can forgive it. Basically.
Apparently, the reason for it is because they were just throwing stuff out, and it's a reference to The Man from U.N.C.L.E., where the tailor shop was like the front for the spy thing. And so when somebody threw that out, it's like, hey, we should make a reference to this. Everyone else in the writer's room was just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
I mean, yeah, there's really a lot of professions that are not super necessary in the world of Star Trek, but they seem to exist anyway. Like, do we really need a quark in a Quark's bar?
Well, see, that I kind of get, because yes, you could, replicate alcohol in your room, but then you're an alcoholic because you're just drinking alone all the time. So it's like a social place.
Okay, so it's so that you can get drunk and not feel bad.
You meet random people, you have a good time,
sure.
Maybe gamble a little bit. Yeah,
okay, yeah, you're right.
I get that.
Right. Yep. And speaking of quarks, Morn is in this episode, but no Ferengis. So I guess the Ferengis had the episode off.
They're still running some tests, seeing what everyone's interested in.
Yeah.
They're like, do people want the Duras sisters? Let's try them out.
Yeah, so yeah, throw them in there. Why not? And Jake Sisko isn't in the episode either.
No Jake, which we established last time. Fletcher loves Jake. I don't mind not seeing Jake, but
well, it's not like whenever Jake's not on screen, I'm saying where's Jake? But I do enjoy seeing Jake when he's around. Definitely way more than I enjoy seeing Wesley.
Well, yeah, I mean, who enjoys seeing Wesley? But I do like that when Morn shows up, he's like in his customary seat at the bar that he will be in for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, talking about planning ahead, like the whole Morn story arc is just apparently like established from day one.
Yep.
Where he is a guy who sits at the bar. I kind of want to know the history of the Morn costume, because I feel like just some costume maker was like, hey, check out this costume I made. And then they were like, oh, that's great. And they just used it every single episode.
I might have to look up Morn now while we're talking about it, because now I'm curious as well.
Oh, and another thing, this is a random, unrelated thought. But I wanted to bring this up last time, but I forgot. Is the character names on this show, I feel like they're not very creative. For example, I can imagine like one of the writers like in his car on the way to work, and he looks down and he sees like Odo on his odometer. And he's like, oh, I got this figured out. Or someone's at the computer store and they see like some CD-ROMs. And they're like, ROM, eh? Or Nog. Like, it's like, someone's drinking some eggnog. They're like,
yep.
It's like, oh, this is a good alien-y sounding word.
So, let's see. What I do find out is that originally, based on the costume, the character was just known as the Grinch by staff.
Okay.
And despite this actor being hired to play this character, he almost didn't make it because the crew left him off the call list for the day that they were filming the scenes in Emissary that he was going to be in.
Huh.
But
you mean the 3-second shot he was in?
Yeah. So, but he says by what he claims was just some sort of intuition, he decided to wander onto the Paramount lot and see what was going on, and it was the day that Morn was supposed to be filmed, and so that's he made it in there.
Nice. That was a good move.
Yep.
It's like that. I don't know how much he got paid to be Morn. I mean, I imagine it can't be that much, but. He was in like every single episode, so
yeah, but he doesn't speak, so I wonder if that counts as like the non-speaking role pay. That even though he's such a big character, that's and obviously, for anyone who wasn't aware, Morn is an anagram of Norm from Cheers,
right?
Since he's got the barfly thing going on,
and then later they establish the whole thing where he shows up and people go Morn, or else I think they do, don't they?
So I think maybe that happens a couple times. Yeah,
that could be something that I imagine happening in my head. I feel like that happens a few times.
apparently there were several times when he had dialogue written into the script, and it was just always removed when the script was being shot.
Well, there's the one episode where he basically has dialogue scenes with Quark. You know the one I'm talking about? And then it's like, he just stands there silently, and somehow Quark is able to understand.
Yeah,
like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I think that's the Who Mourns for Morn episode.
Right. I mean, that's, yeah. Like I meant to say at the beginning of the episode, spoilers through this episode only, so... although Who Mourns for Morn it's like a spoiler in the title, but...
Yeah, I mean, it could mean several things until you say it that way, but, you know.
Well, sure, okay. Yeah, who knows what that means. Okay, during the scene where Garak and Bashir introduce each other, Garak insists that he's just Garak.
Yep, plain simple Garak.
Even though, doesn't Garak have a first name?
Yep, Elam Garak.
Yeah, so I don't know if...
I guess maybe that's a spoiler for a few... This is hard to...
Is that a spoiler? What's that?
I don't know.
Whatever. I feel like if you just look on IMDb, that will be his character name, so...
Probably, yeah.
What?
In his wiki entry on Memory Alpha, it's like, you know, it's got his information, relatives, father, and then the mother spot says Garak's mother.
Oh, sure. I would assume that was the name of Garak's mother.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. And then Bashir hypothesizes that the reason Garak is talking to him is because Garak wants access to, quote, Federation medical secrets.
Which are perfectly safe with him.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
What these secrets are, I can't imagine.
Nope.
Like, it seems kind of like un-Federation to keep medical knowledge a secret.
It's a good point.
It's like, yeah, we have a cure for these diseases, but those are going to be Federation medical secrets that only we will have. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say stuff like the...
I mean, yeah, if the Prime Directive comes into play, then you wouldn't get those...
Sure. But, like...
But, yeah, Cardassians, that's not...
I think Garak is a member of a warp-capable species, so I think it would be fine. But maybe, like, you know, the Borg virus that they created or something might be a Federation medical secret. I don't know. I don't think these Federation medical secrets are ever brought up again in the rest of the show, so...
It's also, I think, left probably intentionally a bit unclear as to whether Garak actually has contacts that he's reporting information to in Cardassia.
Right. I mean, yeah, at this point we don't know, like, what his story is, what his allegiances are. I mean, he very well could just be a simple tailor.
Who's just really interested in, like, you know, this sort of stuff that he's like, hey, let's get involved.
He just could be a really simple tailor, and he's, you know, looking for some love and companionship on the station. And you just happen to stumble into this whole Duras sister situation.
Yeah, I like the scene where they're sitting in like Quarks or whatever, and he's like commenting on the fashion sense of the Klingons, and
it's
like, yeah, totally.
It's like, yep, those Klingon fashions, they're sure noteworthy.
Which is then funny because the Klingons come in and he's like, do you want some see-through lingerie? Which they find extremely insulting. He's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what Klingons like. I'm just, you know.
Yep, exactly. I like, the Klingons aren't really a fashion-conscious people, I feel like. I mean, they have some good outfits sometimes, like, especially in some of the movies. But, you know, like the Cardassians, they're one of those people who seem to have one outfit that everybody wears.
Yeah, more or less. Unless you're, if you're a female, then you get the armor that's like open to show cleavage.
Yeah, exactly. You have a big hole in your armor right where your heart is so that you can get stabbed right in the heart.
Klingons have a couple of those, so it's fine.
Makes perfect sense. Sure. Maybe it's like a boast. It's like, yeah, stab me in the heart. See what happens. What else you got?
I feel like, we talked about it a little bit, but I feel like that this is clearly like the Kira episode to let us know our first officer better and give us a look at the kind of stuff that's important to her. And I feel like for a second episode of the series, it was bold to go like that hard and just, really go for it with this character. And I thought that they did it really well. I totally think this may be like the best second episode.
Yeah, second episodes tend to suck, even with really good shows. And I think, like we said, if they switch these episodes around, that was probably a really good choice. When I was watching it, I felt like it's like a big, like, mid-season moment, or maybe even like end-of-season moment, where, they could have played with these kind of like, conflicting allegiances for a long time, and then given her, like, this moment from this show. And it would have been a really big, kind of, like, satisfying thing, like, even at the end of a season. But, yeah, like, for a second episode, it's pretty good. I was going to mention the title, which is Past Prologue, which I think comes from I don't know who said it, like, what's past is prologue. Basically meaning the, like, or what I get from it is, like, everything that came before, it can inform you going forward, but it doesn't have to, like, own you going forward. And I felt like it's kind of trying to highlight that difference between Kira and the other guy, Tanos or whatever, where, like, the past is all that drives him. Like, he doesn't care about the possibilities of the wormhole or, what the Federation can do for them or any of this stuff. All he cares about is the same things that drove him during the occupation when he was, just fighting violence with violence. Whereas Kira is like, I was in that place, and that place brought me to where I am now. But now we have these new opportunities, and we can, move forward from those. Mm-hmm. So I felt...
And he keeps trying to call her out, like, no, see, you're just like, you're one of them now because you're thinking in a way that is not exactly what we've always done.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a quote from The Tempest.
Oh, okay. Neat. Always good to quote Shakespeare, I feel like.
Well, yeah, sure.
So yeah, that was kind of my interpretation of what the title meant. And, I thought it was really, like, I felt the whole episode was, like, really well written with, like, first of all, just Kira's whole journey, but also the I don't know, like, the spy story where kind of, like, Garrick and, were those guys, the Kon Ma and the Dura sisters, everybody's got their own angle they're playing, and it weaves together in this really satisfying way. Mm-hmm. So... yeah, I felt the writing was really strong.
Yeah, I agree. And there's
with all that stuff. Like, one of my notes is Odo and Kira scene, good. Like, so I guess we should call out that scene where, Kira's just, like, hit her highest moment of crisis, and, she goes to Odo. She doesn't know who to talk to. She goes to Odo because she knows Odo is an absolutely zero bullshit person.
Yeah, exactly.
And he will tell her, like, he will give it to her straight. I thought that whole thing was like, and he was saying some of that same stuff. She's like, I did these things in my past. He's like, yeah, in your past.
I like the way that they, because, this is giving us, more information on Odo's character, too, who we don't really know very well. And there's actually several interesting moments with him in this episode. That's one of them. There's also, when he's reporting stuff to Cisco, and he's like, are we keeping Kira in the loop on this, and Sisko's like, yeah, not right now.
Yeah.
So it's like Odo is willing to, he's despite the fact that he wasn't a big fan necessarily of Sisko when he first meets him and stuff, within the first episode, he's like, you know what, I kind of like this guy after all. But he's showing that he's like, okay, I'm loyal to the commander, I'm going to do what he says. And then that doesn't stop him from, being there for Kira when she comes in. And it's a really great the way they introduce that, where like she walks in, she's like, hey, are you going to do this thing? And he's like, yeah, I mean, I told you I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then she's like, she stands around for a minute. It's like, okay, I guess I'll leave then. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you humanoids, you're just like this pretense. I just can't do it. And she's like, yeah, no, that's just why I came to talk to you, basically.
Which is a little funny, like a guy who can like transform into a mouse talking about pretense, but whatever.
Oh, but yeah, it's
the way that scene ends too, when like, it's like she's right at that point, but like, she it's like he pushes her over the line by calling Sisko down. Is like, I think we're ready to all have a talk about this.
Well, see, and I don't, yeah, I feel like, because he doesn't even know exactly what's going on at this point, but she, because she has some of the information that's gonna get us the answer about what's going on, and so she's trying to be real vague. It's clear that she's trying to decide, is her loyalty to this thing, is it to these people, or is it to Starfleet, basically, or to, what's happening, the provisional government, whatever.
The new, not Starfleet, but like, the new opportunities for Bajor.
And so, even though she's being super vague, and they're having this discussion, and she's just like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. And they get to that point, and he's like, I feel like he has enough respect to her that feels that when they get to this point, he's like, she's going to make the right decision. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and get the ball rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good scene. Like, probably the best scene in the episode, if I was saying.
But I do like what you were saying about how, like, this could have been a moment that Kira was building towards for a long time. Right. It could have been a big dramatic thing, and it was still pretty dramatic, but it was like, no, we're going to go ahead and you don't expect it. We're going to do it right away. It reminds me of, I think it was like the second or third episode of News Radio, where it was like, they wanted the studio or whatever wants them to do this will they won't they Ross and Rachel relationship, and they're like, nope, we're having those two characters hook up in episode 2.
Yeah, we're just gonna launch right into it. Yep. Yeah, sometimes that's really refreshing when you can kind of like predict, because you can kind of predict in the pilots, like, okay, here's going to be the tension between these characters and all that stuff. And so it's kind of it's kind of good to like just like, okay, let's just like explore that right now.
And they still get to play it in the episode before they get to the end, because there's stuff like her calling an admiral while Sisko's still talking to the guy, and she's like, I just don't, I think he's making the wrong decision here. And the admiral's like, okay, yeah, I'll look into it. And then 5 minutes later, the admiral calls Sisko and is like, you have a problem. Like, this shit can't be happening, okay?
Well, yeah, and the great payoff of that is when, Sisko has kind of like been backing her wish to get these guys amnesty. And, like, she realizes he's making an effort, and so she tries to be diplomatic. But then he comes right back at her. He's like, yeah, no problem, but don't call my admiral again, or we're going to have a serious problem.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, they're trying so hard to be on the same page, but it's like they still haven't quite felt each other out yet. Okay, yeah, I guess the last thing I want to talk about is when I was watching the episode... so the Clone Ma want to destroy the wormhole.
Yep.
Because they believe, or they claim they believe, that this will make everybody lose interest in them, and Bajor can be for the Bajorans again.
Yeah, which is not... I mean, the Federation was there before the wormhole, and the Cardassians were still poking around again before the wormhole. So
yeah, exactly. Like, but I think... the more I thought about it, it was like, maybe it's kind of like the point that this plan is so short-sighted and stupid.
Yeah.
Like, that he just needs to do something, like he needs to have a victory. regardless of what the long-term consequences of that victory will be.
And I just like, it's like, hey, we have a chance to become like an important people, like to get like respect on the galactic scene or whatever and become actually powerful. And he's like, but I don't want that.
Yeah.
I just want people to leave us alone. And clearly I am the one who should be making these decisions. So
yeah, exactly.
Let's do this thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's a pretty good, he's a pretty good kind of like three-dimensional character. Where it's like he's just so wrong, but it's like you can kind of see his thought process, even though it's, a really bad thought process.
Well, and you also have to wonder, because these are Bajorans, it's like, so do they not, are they not religious at all? And I don't think it comes up in the episode, but it's like, this is the temple of the prophets as far as your religion is concerned. Does that not make you...
It was never explained if they understood that connection between the wormhole and the prophets.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That they could have been like, the prophets live in there, and he's like, I don't care about the prophets, and I don't know.
Also, I have to say, like, there was one thing that I almost forgot about until we were talking about it, but when Kira and Tano, or whatever his name is,
that guy, whatever his name is,
when they're in the runabout, they get the stuff for the bomb, he's going and putting it together, and Kira, like, finally takes her moment to be like, okay, I'm gonna have to stop him now. Like, I don't know if she does it badly, or if, just for writing purposes, I guess they were like, okay, he has to overpower her. And I'm like, there's no way that should happen. Because even if he is concerned that maybe he shouldn't trust her, and he's prepared for her to, like, betray him at some point, she was supposed to have come into this ready to stop him. And so she just stands up, he immediately, like, knocks her down and beats her up and takes her hostage. And I was like, this was really badly planned. And Kira, you're supposed to be kind of a badass. And he just whooped you with, like, no problem whatsoever.
But yeah, so especially, like you said, with, she should have had because at some point, they have to take him into custody, right?
Yeah.
And she's got to be prepared to do that, so...
They should have had, like, a button program to where it's like, okay, just hit this button, and then it'll, like, knock anyone in the back unconscious.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's the kind of thing they would have done on Next Gen, where, like, they would have come up with this whole elaborate thing, like, Geordi would have said a bunch of words, and then it would have been like, okay, it's all set. Just, like, lure him here, and then we'll do this. But, yeah, it didn't really seem like she had much of a plan. And then I guess it was her phaser that he stole. I never really saw where he got that phaser.
Yeah, I think it must have been
But they should have had like a dummy phaser. Like that would have been great if like they gave him like a dummy phaser and then he confessed his whole plan, and then it was just turned out the phaser is a dud or whatever and it doesn't work.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely like I think I feel like that is a Next Generation episode where it's like, oh no, you got my phaser, and then they reveal their whole plan, and you're like, oh yeah, we turned that off like 5 minutes ago.
I'm 100% sure that has happened on the Next Generation. I just can't remember when.
Oh, I know exactly. Okay, yeah, I know exactly when this happened. Like the guy who was pretending to be a historian from the future, like Data goes into his shuttle, and then he's like, oh man, now I'm gonna take you back to the past with me too. And he pulls, like, the phaser on Data, and Data's like, oh, yeah. After the whole thing, Data's like, oh, no. When the door opened, like, the computer deactivated all of our technology that you stole, so that's useless now. Yeah, that's probably... I think it might have happened more than once, but yeah, I think probably, yeah. Well, because their transporters also had the ability to, like, turn off weapons mid-transport, so I feel like that caught somebody by surprise more than once.
Because there's an episode where they're like... There's an episode where it's like, there's a weapon in the beam... And then Picard's like, disable the weapon. And then they beam the person there, and then the person's weapon is totally useless.
Oh, so, okay, I just went back to that scene. He turns his back to go hit some buttons. She gets up and is going to confront him, and he just immediately turns around and punches her and knocks her out. And there's just, like, a niche on the wall where there's two phasers just stuck to the wall, and he reaches up and grabs one.
See, that would have been perfect for, like, a dummy phaser setup. But whatever, they did the old, rock the runabout trick instead. Whatever, I'll take it. Like, it's it's kind of one of those things where, like, for purposes of the story, it doesn't really matter what happens.
Is this? Did we see any runabouts in the last episode, or is this the first experience with runabouts?
We 100% saw a runabout. I think we saw the Yangtze Kian.
Okay.
In the previous episode, because that's what Cisco and Dax took through the wormhole.
Oh yeah.
And then this one we get the what's it called?
Is it the Rubicon? I remember that's one of them. It took me a long time to figure out
the Ganges. To
realize the Ganges, yeah. Yep, Ganges, that's what Cisco's in. It took me forever to realize that, like, the runabouts are named after rivers. Like, I somehow did not get that for the longest time.
And the Ganges has, like, a doodad on top, so I guess that's how you tell the difference.
Yeah, I think it's like I don't know if it's a photon torpedo launcher or what it is, but yeah, it's got a thingy on top.
It's a thing that they can make up what it is later. Is what I think that thing is. They're like, hey, we should put a thing on top of the thing, and then later we can say it's a super phaser or a warp enhancer or something, so that this runabout can go faster.
Let's see. According to the wiki for this episode, past prologue, the Ganges is outfitted with a roll bar containing sensor equipment for when it's assisting with the apprehension of Bajoran terrorist Tanalos. So I guess it doesn't always have that. So this was special equipment added for this mission.
So it was sensor equipment to see what was going on inside the other runabout or something?
Actually, that makes sense, because while they're monitoring, like, the deal going down, and then they watch the Klingons leave, and they start, like, going after the runabout, and at some point, O'Brien is like, okay, we're coming into their sensor range right now. And I was thinking, but you have the same ship. How is their sensor range smaller than your sensor range? So now it makes sense. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I guess you gotta give the writers a little bit of credit for thinking of that, I suppose. I don't know. They were like, hey, can you put a thing on top of the runabout so that the sensors are better? Okay. I think that goes through all my points. Let me look. Oh, Cisco is admirably on top of current events, especially in the Klingon Empire. Oh, that's I feel like Garrick was not, even though it was really fun, was not super essential for, like, I feel like if Garrick wasn't there, they still would have had a pretty good outcome for this episode, because Cisco is, like, 100% on the ball all the time. He's like, oh, the Dura sisters are here, huh? Rumor is they're trying to raise funds to, like, retake the council or whatever. And, like, every new development, he's like, oh, okay, yeah. And, like, he has, like, the exact right plan ready to go.
That's true. I was, like, he does instantly have it, like, his fingertips. Oh, yeah, the Dura sisters, they led that thing in that like, the Civil War in the Klingon Empire, and then they're trying to get this money to rebuild their army or whatever. And I was like, that is weird that he knows that off the top of his head, but I guess, like, a Klingon Civil War isn't, like, small news.
Yeah, like, if, like, a big country in the world today, like, was having a big thing like that, I'm sure everybody would know about it, like the war going on right now. So
yeah, I just don't know I don't remember how long ago, like, the last time we saw them was in within the show. I mean, within the universe.
It was at most a few years, right? So
okay, the Klingon Civil War was 2367, and this episode is 2369. So it's been a couple years.
And I'm sure, like, officers like that get regular, like, intelligence briefings and stuff. That's like,
probably.
Keep an eye out for the Dura sisters. They're, like, they're doing some stuff right now. So he had the excuse that they can't arrest them because they haven't broken any Bajoran laws. Which I guess
I think he saes they haven't broken any Federation laws, which is when I was like, wait a second.
Like, that can't possibly be true, but...
Yeah, I was like, do we not have an extradition treaty with the Klingons or something? Yeah. Like, I feel like you would, right?
Yeah, like, maybe Bajor doesn't have, like, they're
not that well Bajor absolutely probably doesn't yet, if they're going to, but, like, the Federation should.
Yeah, so... But, I mean, maybe that's why they're steering clear of the Federation. Who knows? So, yeah, I just thought that was a little bit weird. But, yeah, these are just, like, a bunch of little, like, nitpicks. And you can always, like, come up with, like, your own little explanations for this stuff. But, it's always fun.
Okay, he just says they haven't broken any laws here, so I guess we don't know whose laws specifically.
Yeah. I don't know, yeah.
And then Odo's like, Cardassian rule may have been oppressive, but at least it was simple. Which I feel like if you're looking back on the occupation fondly, he doesn't say it fondly exactly, but I understand it was more orderly, and Odo has, like, this predilection for order, but, dude, like, don't say that.
It's probably not good for him to refer back to his time working for the Cardassians. Because he did work for the Cardassians when it was, like, Terok Nor, right?
Yeah, he was, like, he was security guy even then, so,
so
I don't know how much authority he had exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that he's not, administering the torture or whatever to their prisoners or that kind of thing that the Cardassians love to do. At least hope, one would hope not, but he was involved in at least arresting people.
Yeah, I think he was probably given enough, like, autonomy that he was able to kind of maintain sort of a neutral status or something.
Yeah, as soon as the Federation shows up, he's comfortable with he's in charge of the promenade. He's like, I don't allow weapons on here.
Yeah.
Which you feel like that's not, that he didn't get that confidence in 2 days to be like, I'm the boss and I don't allow weapons around here.
Yeah, so. Yep.
So.
Okay, want to rate the episode?
Yeah, I'm going to give this one, I feel like I'm gonna give this one a commander, a 3 pip rating.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe it deserves even a little more, but I feel like that's what I'm gonna do for it. I liked it a lot. I feel like it's really solid, especially for this early in a series. For a second episode, it was really good. I don't know that it's top tier for the whole series or anything, but for where it's placed, I think it's really good.
So, do you like it better than the pilot?
I would say. It's so different from the pilot where everything is being introduced and there's all of these, and it's 2 episodes long. There's all these balls in the air, basically. I think as a standalone story, it definitely works better than the pilot.
Yeah.
It's not setting up as much, so I can't give it as much credit there.
Yeah, it's true. It's a little bit of an apples and oranges, but.
I rated it higher than the pilot, so I guess, I'd say that.
That's true. You gave the pilot a lieutenant commander, right?
Yep.
See, where I'm almost tempted to give it like a captain, but like I'm kind of wary of getting into this shifting baselines situation where like as the overall quality of the show increases, it's like, do you want to put this right next to some of the later really good episodes?
Right, yeah, because, it's easy to be like, this is the best episode so far, because there's only been 2 of them, so clearly it should be rated highly. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm trying to keep that in mind also.
Later we might have to, like, introduce, like, admiral ranks or something like that.
I absolutely have already thought, I'm like, well, there's at least one episode that I'm going to be like, maybe this is an admiral. I gotta... So.
I'm gonna give it a really strong commander. And I also, I think as an episode... I think in terms of just, like, enjoyment, I'm going to put it above the pilot.
See, I feel like if this was a later season episode that did something really similar, you'd have hit, like, the characters, like Bashir, the personalities wouldn't be as weird and, like, wonky as they seem. So if those were more on base, and obviously we're still dealing, like, the makeup's not... exactly where it's going to be eventually and that kind of thing. So it could definitely be a captain in another context.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. That's a good point. Although I have to say, just the crazy, like, weird Bashir acting kind of entertained me.
Yeah, there's almost something to be said for, like, I kind of miss when he was young and full of just, like, anything could happen. And because the same thing happens in his, like, appearance on The Next Generation, where I watched that clip the other day when we were talking about it. I was just like, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this, like, why is he insane? Like, I knew that he was young and shit, but wow, okay.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely a case of, he has not found that, or maybe the writers also just haven't found that character yet. So
yeah, I feel like the writers and I think it may partly be because you point out he's just dumb. Like, he's real dumb. And and that's only entertaining the first couple of times, unless you're going to Homer Simpson it, where you get progressively dumber to the point where you don't even remember your own name because you're that dumb. Then you got to go a different direction with it eventually.
Yep. And also another thing about his character, which I discovered when I was like trying to create my own like fan spin-off series for Star Trek, is you realize you need a Doctor character.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, like, okay, I have this character, this character, this character, this character. And I was like, wait, you need a Doctor character on your show. Because, like, every other episode, someone has to go to sick bay for something. It's like, you need a Doctor character, you need an engineer character, and, you know, you probably need, like, a science-y, like, explain the weird phenomenon character also. So I'm wondering if they got to this point in the writer's room where they had Cisco and Kira and Odo and Quark and all these great characters, and they were like, oh, shoot, we need a Doctor, don't we? And they're like, we can figure him out later. We'll give him a hook later.
Yeah, that could be. I read that apparently the actor who goes by Alexander Siddig eventually, but I believe in these early seasons is still credited under his Siddig El Fadil.
Yeah. Which one?
He was.
Go ahead.
Sorry. He was was in contention for Cisco, and in the end they decided that he was too young, and so they're like, okay, we'll cast you as this other character instead. Yeah,
that's probably. I mean, yeah, Avery Brooks is. I mean, I don't know who else could play Cisco but him. Like, he's.
I remember seeing. Hold on, I remember seeing something about other actors, and there were some of them that seemed kind of actors for Benjamin Sisko. Let me see if I can find that. Also, I didn't realize this, or I'd forgotten it. Apparently, the actor who plays Bashir was married to the actress who plays Kira in 1997 until 2001.
I vaguely remember that. I'm pretty I seem to remember that was when the show was still going on, right? 1997.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that must have been while the show was still going on. Okay. That's where I read this, because I was reading a whole article in the Memory Alpha wiki about like performers considered for various roles. Mm-hmm. Like Richard Dean Anderson was one of the people considered for Cisco.
That would have been weird. No thanks.
Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or I guess he's also Shredder in the Ninja Turtles.
Sure.
Which, yeah. That would have been an interesting take on it.
That would be interesting for sure.
Pierce Brosnan was considered, but he wasn't interested in doing television at the time.
Wasn't he already James Bond at that point? When did he do his first Bond movie?
Yeah, his first one was 95.
Oh, okay.
So when does DS9 start?
93.
Okay.
I looked it up because I wanted to look at some today in history type stuff for when these episodes came out. But it's like nothing interesting was happening like on that day.
Clancy Brown, but he wasn't available due to back surgery.
Oh.
Peter Capaldi auditioned for the role of Benjamin Sisko. Now that would have been a very different...
Yeah.
Jeez. Lawrence Fishburne, but he also was not interested in doing television.
I think I would have been interested in seeing Lawrence Fishburne as...
Oh yeah, I would absolutely. Apparently, James Earl Jones was one of the final candidates for the role before it went to Avery.
Huh.
Terry O'Quinn, he'd already been in an episode of The Next Generation as a major character. I don't know.
Yeah, as a Federation officer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I guess maybe they could have used the same. No, he was like humiliated at the end of that episode. They could not have made him the same guy.
See, I forget everything about that episode. But I mean, it's not like they've the guy who plays Tom Paris.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
they made him an exactly identical character to his one from Next Gen. So I mean, you know.
I think James Earl Jones and Richard Dean Anderson are some really interesting possibilities there that I would have been interested in seeing those.
I think Richard Dean Anderson would have been too hammy.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he eventually got the Stargate SG-1 job, which is one of my favorite sci-fi shows of all time, and he's amazing in that because he just gets to be so funny.
Yeah, that's more of a role for him.
Yeah.
Or it's just because, also, it's one of those things, like, the writers write the character, and then they see the performance, and then they kind of, like, it becomes this kind of feedback cycle where the writers and the actor kind of, like, develop the character together.
Yeah.
So, we're thinking of the character as, Avery Brooks kind of made it. But we don't know how the character might have been in someone else's performance.
That's a good
point. Was this before or after American History X? Was it before?
American History X. Let's see when that was. 1998 was American History X.
So it was way before.
Yeah.
Huh. And what else? He was in Miami Vice or one of those shows, wasn't he? Like, that was his major thing before this?
Let me see. Hold on. Let me look up what he's done. He hasn't done much since. Like, he stopped acting, or for the most part, since Deep Space Nine, I feel like. So let's see. What did he do before? Spencer for Hire.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, probably.
And then I guess he had a spin-off of that because it seems like he's playing the same character in a show called A Man Called Hawk, where he played a character in Spencer for Hire called Hawk.
Okay. Huh.
Oh, he was in an episode of Gargoyles. Before Deep Space Nine? No, okay, that was in the middle of Deep Space Nine. That makes sense. Then they had a lot of Star Trek actors in Gargoyles.
Sure, yeah. Like, wasn't Jonathan Frakes in that or something?
Yeah, Jonathan Frakes plays, like, the bad guy, the main recurring bad guy in the show. And Brent Spiner shows up a couple times as a different bad guy, and Marina Sirtis is one of the other main bad guys. So there's all sorts of Star Trek actors in there.
Anyway, so I guess we'll sign off. What was my sign off? Like, and if you're ever feeling homesick, something.
I don't, yeah.
That's my sign off music.